So we finished explaining what is the tzaddik, what is the rasha, and what is the beinoni that we discussed in the last 2 weeks. And we ended off last week with the Rebbe saying, turning back to the brisa with which we started Tanya. The very first words of Tanya are that before a child comes down here into this world, so the neshama is made to swear. Neshama is administered an oath to hit tzaddik v'al ti rasha. Be a tzaddik and don't be a rasha. So, l'choira, as the Rebbe points out last week, that's a redundancy. If ti tzaddik, if a person's a tzaddik, then obviously they're not a rasha. So why do you have to say ti tzaddik v'al ti rasha? The Rebbe answers that ti tzaddik, okay, we should try to be a tzaddik, but at the end of the day, not everyone has the ability to be a tzaddik. Because as we learned last week, that to be a tzaddik is moser lalev. That has to do with conquering and overcoming one's emotions. And that's not something which is within every single person's capability. Most of us were put here in this world and we struggle. We struggle against our desires and our temptations and our character flaws and our weaknesses. And that's why we continue. The neshama is administered a second oath, v'al tehi rasha. At least don't be a rasha, because that's within your ability to do. That there is no excuses for, because in the area of machshava dibur ma'aseh, in the area of thought, speech, and action, in that area, as Alter Rebbe says, that every single person, the reshus and the bechira and the yicholos has the permission and has the free choice and has the ability to choose to do the right thing. So
they tell him to be tzaddik and not rasha, but before he's born, they're teaching him the whole Torah, and then they push the button to here, and he should forget everything. So he knows the whole Torah. It's a tzaddik already.
It's the same sugi in Gemara where it talks about teaching the same sugi in Gemara neither where it talks about teaching the child the entire Torah. It says also over there that right before the child is born, he has to make this oath. It's not connected to learning Torah. The fact that he knows the whole Torah and forgets it, he has administered this oath. Now, today in our Perek, Alter Rebbe is going to continue and say the truth is. So you might think like this: if that my neshama has the ability to be a tzaddik, then to be tzaddik, then I have to try to be a tzaddik. If, however, my neshama, I don't have that special neshama, and therefore I am my role and my job here in this world is to be a struggling person, a person who has to struggle constantly to do the right thing. So then, for me, my avodah is only to do the right thing. That's my avodah, to make sure that my machshava dibur ma'aseh, that my thoughts, speech, and action are the way the Torah wants it to be. Says the Alter Rebbe, no. Even if you will never be a tzaddik, you have to try to be a tzaddik. Even though you'll never get there. So that's why tehi tzaddik v'al tehi rasha. Tehi tzaddik, you have to try to be a tzaddik. You might never get there. And at the very least, al tehi rasha, don't be a rasha. But we are never absolved of the mandate and the obligation, this oath that our neshama took before we were born. Our neshama took an oath that we will try to be a tzaddik, to hit tzaddik. We're constantly aspiring to be a tzaddik. Every one of us over here has to aspire to be a tzaddik. What does it mean to aspire to be a tzaddik? I'm opening the floor. What does it mean to aspire to be a tzaddik?
To start when you're young.
No. What does it mean to be a tzaddik? Not what does it mean to aspire. What does it mean to aspire to be a tzaddik? What do we?
To emulate somebody.
To defeat the Yetzer Hara.
To defeat the Yetzer Hara. No.
To slay the Yetzer Hara. To have no Yetzer Hara.
Because to have no Yetzer Hara, right? To defeat.
Yeah, you push it out.
Yeah, but it doesn't mean that you should do the right thing, because that's a beinoni, that's a struggler, right? To hit tzaddik means that we have to try to work not only on our machshava dibur ma'aseh, but also on our midas. Which means, says the Alter Rebbe, that a person, you have to take time to think about the greatness of Hashem and try to develop a love for Hashem. And that takes time, it takes effort, it takes it's mental exertion, what's called hisbaininus, and that's very important. And on the other side, we need to take time. Sorry?
Is that part of machshava? Part of machshava dibur ma'aseh?
No, machshava means that I'm not going to think anything bad. I'm not going to think anything which Torah says I'm not allowed to think about. That's when it states, when it says that you should be nizar, be careful, machshava dibur ma'aseh, that's what it means. Here we're going deeper, to take time to be mizbayin and to think deeply into Hashem's greatness, to develop Avas Hashem and Yiras Hashem. And on the flip side, to take time, we know another feature of the tzaddik, besides for the fact that tzaddik loves Hashem and has feelings for Hashem, tzaddik also has a profound disgust for tanugi elam hazeh, for the pleasures of this world. So it says the Alter Rebbe, we should take time to try to develop a disgust for Gashmias. Alter Rebbe says to take time to think about how everything in this world is hoivev and nifsad. It's here one day, it's gone the next. It's all transitory. Is that the word? Transient. It's not. They say the story of a chassid back in the early 1900s, and they once brought him to Manhattan to see all the skyscrapers. And afterwards, they asked him what were his impressions. He came from the shtetl in Eastern Europe, where
Nothing.
everything was tiny and small. And here, the big, glass and steel skyscrapers. So he said, my impressions are that it looks like the Malachim had diarrhea over here. Because it says, it's explained in Kabbalah and Chassidus, that Olam Haza, the Tanugi Olam Haza, the pleasures of this world, come from what's called Shmarei Ha'efanim. Shmarei Ha'efanim means the sediment of the Malachim, the psoilos, right? The shmutz. So there's so much Tanug Elam Haza, so the only thing that he can think of is that the Malachim had diarrhea over here. And we can think into it. We can think into how everything in this world is absolutely nothing. It's here today, gone tomorrow. None of the pleasures last. There's no happiness to be gained by pursuing Elam Haza. So this two-pronged approach of, on the one hand, thinking about the greatness of Hashem and developing Avas Hashem and Yiras Hashem. On the other hand, developing a disgust for Elam Haza. This is something which every single one of us has to do. And this is called Avodah. And this is really a new area. Because until now, the Alter Rebbe was saying, the main thing is, do mitzvahs, don't do averis, learn your Torah, do what you're supposed to do. And a person can say, okay. But what's going on inside of me, what's going on with my midas, that's not so important. It comes along the Alter Rebbe and says, no. Your midas are very, very important. It's important that your emotions and your feelings are in the right place, and that you have a love for Hashem, and that you're not so overly enamored with Elam Haza, even though that you won't be a tzaddik. You'll never love Hashem like a tzaddik will, and you'll never have true disgust for this world like a tzaddik will, but you have to do your best. And then with that we conclude Perek Yudal. Then the Alter Rebbe moves on to Perek Tezvav, which is a very fascinating Perek. The Rebbe says, and the Perek begins with the words, Ubazet Yuvan, with this we'll understand, Mashakasu, that which the Pasuk says, it's a Pasuk of Malachi, Ushaftem uri'isem ben sadik l'rasha ben ovid elakim l'asher lo yavadeh. That when Mashiach comes, we'll be able to look back and we'll see the difference between a tzaddik and a rasha, between someone who serves Hashem and someone who doesn't serve Hashem. So the Gemara, if I remember correctly, it's a Gemara in Chagiga, the Gemara records a conversation between Ben Hehe and Hillel. Ben Hehe was a Talmud of Hillel. And Ben Hehe asked Hillel, the Pasuk says, you look back, you'll see the difference between a tzaddik and a rasha, between one who serves Hashem and one who doesn't serve Hashem. So Ben Hehe asked his teacher, I don't understand. Hainu tzaddik, hainu avadeh. Hainu rasha, hainu lo avadeh. The pasuk is redundant. A tzaddik is someone who serves Hashem. A rasha is someone who doesn't serve Hashem. So what does the pasuk mean when it divides it? It says the difference between a tzaddik and a rasha, and then it adds another clause on the difference between one who serves Hashem and one who doesn't serve Hashem. It's the same thing in different words. So Hillel said no. So Hillel said that Eini doinma shoyna pirkei meya pamim l'shoyna pirkei meya pam v'achas. You can't compare someone who studies 100 times to someone who studies 101 times. It's a puzzling answer. So Hillel says that someone who studies 100 times, someone who serves Hashem, someone who studies 101 times, someone who doesn't serve Hashem. Sorry, someone who studies 100 times, someone who's not serving Hashem. Someone who studies 100 times is not serving Hashem.
That extra one makes a difference.
You want to tell me that extra one makes a difference? I understand. But you're going to tell me that someone who goes home from Shir and Chazers 100 times, he's a loy avadai. He's someone who doesn't serve Hashem. And if he's someone and the avadai, someone who does serve Hashem, why isn't he a tzaddik?
Halavai to be a low avadu.
What?
Halavai to be a low avadu.
Halavai to be a loy avadai.
Study 100 times. Can you do that here?
So it would seem. But also, again, if you study 101 times, you're avada, you're a tzaddik. It seems there's a tzaddik, there's four things over here. There's a tzaddik, a rasha, an avada, and loy avada. So question number one is, why is someone who studies 100 times someone who doesn't serve Hashem? Question number two is, why is someone who's an avada, why isn't he a tzaddik? And by the way, who's the rasha? Someone who studies 99 times? So the Rebbe explains like this. He says, tzaddik and rasha is what we learned already. Tzaddik and rasha and Tanya. There's a tzaddik and there's a rasha. And then the oivad elokim and the loy avada, both of them are the beinani. Both of them are the struggling people. And what is the difference between the two of them? So the Rebbe says that back in the day, it was normal to review one study 100 times. That was the standard protocol.
That was the normal.
That was the normal. That was the normal. Why was that the normal? And why was that? No, there's a reason why we don't do that anymore today. Why was that the normal? Because they didn't have Sfarim back in those days. Today, when you study something, you're trying to understand it. And once you understand it, you put the sefer back in the shelf, and you're like, okay, I understood it. And if I ever want to remember it, with all its details, I'll go back, I'll open the sefer, and I'll look at it again. But back then, when you studied something, the purpose wasn't just to understand it. You had to remember it with every single detail of it, because you were the link in the chain of Torah Sheba'al Peh. There were no books. So you had to retain everything you learned. But today we have a lot of Sfarim. Back in those days, they had walking Sfarim. Everything that a person knew wasn't in the sefer, it was in the head.
Didn't have contrasting?
If you want, you could write some notes for yourself. But there was no texts. There was no official text which anyone learned, other than Chumash and Tanakh.
Until when did you get?
What era?
This was until the time of Rabbi Yehuda Anasi, and that was after the destruction of the second Beis Hamikdash. This story, which in other words, this whole conversation about Me'apam and Me'apam V'achas between Hillel and Hey. Hillel passed away. Hillel passed away probably close to 100 years before the second Beis Hamikdash was destroyed. The Mishnah was made probably close to 200 years after the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed. So we're talking about more than 2 centuries before the first Sfarim came into existence. And it's a totally different world. You walked into Yeshiva, there were no Sfarim. Instead, what were the people were listening to their Rabbi, and then they would go back and they would study it 100 times, and that is what guaranteed the integrity of the transmission of Torah Sheba'al Peh, because they studied it 100 times, and they retained it completely.
Then they can pass it.
And this way, they were able to teach it to their student, because when you learn something 100 times, you remember it. You remember it with every single detail.
Stick in the head.
It's a totally different way of learning. Imagine we learned every Perek 100 times. Right?
It would actually go in you.
I believe I mentioned last when I taught the Perek, there was a chassid whose name was Mendel Futterfass. And my brother once was in Yeshiva where he was the mashpia over there. My brother went over and asked him a question on a mimer. And Mendel started saying the words of the mimer verbatim. So my brother asked him if he just learned the mimer, and he said no, he hasn't learned that mimer in 70 years. My brother says, then what? How do you know it so well? So he says that when you learn a mimer, when you learn something more than 300 times, then it becomes one with you. And when he saw my brother was taken aback, he says, I'll explain to you. He says, when I was a bacher, a mesifta, a young boy, so by Fabrengen once the mashpia said that we should take one mimer and learn it for a full year every day before davening. So this way the mimer, what? Same mimer every single day. And says, this is the mimer. The mimer you're asking me a question on is that mimer. So when you learn it more than 300 times, in other words, for a full year, so even 70 years later, you could pretty much say it verbatim. So that was the standard. They would learn 100 times.
This is what I said yesterday on Kuta. You always remember.
Gishta the Yaakov says something else. But here
you
also,
left to it.
if you learn something 300 times, you would also remember it, even though you're not so young. We're not talking right now about the idea of youth. We're talking about the idea of no. Gishta the Yaakov says something else. Now we're talking. You're right. Right.
Just bring me up there. Something else altogether.
Yeah. So to learn then 101 times. If you're used to learning 100 times, learning 101 times is difficult because it's more than what you're used to. I know that might sound strange to you. If you're learning 100 times, what does it mean to learn 101 times? So let me ask you, if one day your boss, you leave every day work, let's say at 6 o'clock, and one day your boss says, after being there 8 hours, can you please stay another 10 minutes? Tell me what those 10 minutes feel like.
Oh yeah, forever.
Forever, right? You were there 8 hours just now, it's another 10 minutes. What's 10 minutes? You did 10 minutes times who knows how many in the work today? But that's what you're used to. You're used to sitting in your there every day till 5 or 6 or whatever it may be. That extra 10 minutes, like I imagine going and telling someone who runs a marathon, do another half a mile.
Oh, no. You're killing you.
What do you mean? You just did 26 and a half miles. What's another half a mile? And there are many such, if you go to a shul and your Rav gives a speech on Shabbos, and if the speech is usually 15 minutes, and if 17 minutes go by, everyone is already fidgety, right? And if Chas v'Shalom 20 minutes go by, the Rav is in danger of losing his job, because that's a rule of human nature. That is that what we're used to, even if it's difficult and even if it's hard. Whatever we're used to, I'm listening to 15 minutes of a drasha is not easy, right? But even if it's hard, but if it's something that we're used to, we live with it. The moment that we have to do a little more than that, it's difficult. Difficult. I got many such examples. So no, even you go to a gas station, you're used to paying $2.50 for gas, and then you come it's $2.55, and you're thinking, what's the 5 cents? It's not the point. It's more than you're used to, and it throws you off and it gets you nervous. So what is the advantage over the 100, the 101 over the 100? Is that it's yoser, in the words of the Alter Rebbe, it's yoser megilus. It's more than you're used to. To do something which you're used to doing, you can go on autopilot. You can go on autopilot. Whatever you're used to doing. Thinking of Avodas Hashem. We're talking with the relative autopilot. To go yoser mergilusai, to do more than you're used to learn that 101st time, where does that come from? Where does that koyach come from to learn that 101st time? To do something which is more than what you're used to? That, says the Alter Rebbe, that comes from avodah. That comes from avodah. And this is true in all areas of our life, because there are some things that are easy for us because by nature they're easy for us. For example, some people enjoy learning, so for them learning is not so difficult. There are some things that have become natural for us, not because we have that inborn nature, but because we practiced. And hergel nasa teva sheni, we got used to it, and even though it's not something which is intrinsic to us, but ultimately, at the end of the day, now already after all the years, let's say for someone to run a mile, some people, for them, I don't know, some people, I think they're naturally there, to them to run is not a big deal. Some people it's very difficult for them to run. But even a person who is difficult for them to run, if they were to do it for 2-3 years every single day, so then also to run a mile, they wouldn't be difficult. I'm assuming so. But either way, once something becomes your normal, whether it's normal because by virtue of that's the way you were born, or whether it's normal because Hergel Masa Tevasheni became your second nature, you're on autopilot. What if you want to do more than what's normal? You want to learn the 101st time. How does that happen? So let's look inside Tanya. Page Chaf Aleph.
Which one?
We'll start 6 lines from the bottom. V'lachein, and therefore, Zeis hapam hameva achas, this 101st time, hayeseir al haragilus, which is more than that which you're used to, shehur gam ne'ura, of that which, your habit which you've been habituated from your youth. And listen to the words of the Alter Rebbe here. Shkula keneged kulan. That one is the equivalent of the whole 100. Okay? That means it's worth, if you're doing it 101 times, the 101st time is worth 100 times more than everything you learned before. Simple math, right? Every time you learned was worth once. This one is the equivalent of them all, so that means it's 100 times more valuable than everything beforehand. And then he goes further, and it's even worth more than all of them put together. It's much more important than all of them. Why? Because now you're called a Oived Elikim. Why you called the Oived Elikim? Because in order to change your nature, to do something which goes beyond your nature, you need to awaken your love for Hashem. And how does that happen? Through you meditating and contemplating upon the greatness of Hashem in your mind, and thereby to overcome and overpower and dominate over the nature which is in the left side of the heart, by the nefesh habahamis, hamoli dam hanefesh habahamis, shema klipa shememena hu hateva, which from there comes the nature. The nature comes from nefesh habahamis. V'zuhi avodah tamu lebeinini. This is a complete avodah for the beinini. So what's the Alter Rebbe saying over here? Why is the 101st time so important? Because the 101st time requires avodah. And what does avodah mean? The definition of avodah in Chassidus is using your mind to think and meditate and contemplate in the greatness of Hashem and to awaken a love for Hashem.
Why is usually Moshe Elakim?
Oived Elikim?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Is it in?
Yeah, they're actually, I'm pretty sure the Rebbe talks about it, because the tzaddik is called the Eved Hashem. Right? Because the Beinani is struggling with the Elikim. This is the Beinani. So now we understand. Listen to this. There's the tzaddik, there's the rasha. So Malachi says, when Mashiach comes, we'll see. There's the tzaddik and there's the rasha. And then there's also the Oived Elikim and Asher Lo Yavadi, the one who serves Hashem and the one who doesn't serve Hashem. And as Chassidim say, the difference between the Oived Elikim and the Asher Lo Yavadi is as far away from each other as the tzaddik and the rasha. Meaning to say, you might think, here is a person, a wonderful person. He learns 100 times everything that he learned. He learned 100 times. And obviously he's a person who's a Shomer Torah mitzvahs. But he's a Lo Yavadeh. When Mashiach comes, we'll look and we'll see, this is a tzaddik. This is a Oived Elikim. The others, Rasha Lo Yavadeh. Then we'll realize the value of avodah. And what is the value of avodah? Is that you had to use your mind to impact your emotions. Because to go above and beyond, that's not autopilot. It's not autopilot. What does that require? That requires real love for Hashem. What impels you to learn that 101st time is the love for Hashem. And where is that love coming from? That love has to be generated through His beinunus, and that's avodah. So what's interesting over here is the greatness of the 101st time is what? Is not, it's a symptom, it's not the cause. The main thing is the avodah. The reason why the person learns 101st time is not because the 101st time is so valuable. It's because what brought him to learn the 101st time. Yeah.
There's also going to be mention here about the method of this Sibonanus, like the details of.
No.
Does it talk about it in Tanya?
No. Oh, he does, not here.
Okay.
In Tanya, but we didn't learn that yet.
It's coming up.
That's coming up, yeah. In other words, that's coming up in the mems. Yeah.
The content of this bonus.
Yeah, many different hisbainuses in the Alter Rebbe will give, in the mems. In a relationship, for example, comes along a birthday, comes along an anniversary. So we all know there's an autopilot birthday, an autopilot anniversary. What's an autopilot birthday? Autopilot birthday is what? Dinner. And you stop off on the way back from work and you pick up a bouquet of flowers and a card which you sign, and the dinner, and some sort of gift, right? That's the autopilot. And that's expected, it's normal, we're used to it.
Hallmark card.
A Hallmark card, right?
And you go to the shir together with the wife.
Sorry, what?
You go to the shir with the wife, that's the most important thing.
Okay, everyone has their own autopilot birthday. That's your autopilot birthday, okay? What's a non-autopilot birthday? What's a non-autopilot birthday?
Make your own card.
What?
Make your own card.
Forget about the anniversary.
Autopilot is you think of a whole theme and you get 9 presents and some sort of the scavenger hunt leading from one present to the other present, and you just plan a whole day and a theme, and right, like with kind of thing most of us don't do most of the time, right? But where does that come from? What would motivate someone to do a non-autopilot birthday or anniversary? So the first obvious answer is you did something very bad. But let's say that didn't happen. Let's say everything's good, right? So what would motivate you to go that extra mile? In other words, instead of doing the 100, which is what you used to the 101, what would motivate you to do that?
Your love for him.
Love, but it has to be a love.
Attachment.
It has to be a love. It has to be a love that's felt. Because to go beyond the routine, that's what it takes. It takes that feeling of love. What's value, and you know what? You know why? Why is that extra special planned birthday appreciated? Is it because your wife really, really likes 9 presents more than 1 present? Does that make a difference? In other words, is it when your wife is blown away by this birthday that you planned with those 9 gifts? Is it because she's like, wow, not one gift, now I get 9 gifts? If your kid is 4, that's what the kid is all excited about, the 9 instead of the 1. It's not a quantity difference that you're getting 1 gift versus 9 gifts.
It's what's behind it.
It's what's behind the gift. The same thing with the 101. It's not the 101st time itself that's special. It's not the 101st time. It's what got you there. It's the avodah. That's why it's different between avodai and the loy avodai. One person's going on autopilot, serving Hashem in autopilot. So this is a person who is a Beinoni. In other words, he's doing every single mitzvah and every single Torah, and still he's loy avodai, that he missed the boat. Because Hashem wants you to love Him. Hashem wants you to work to love Him. Tehi tzaddik. Remember, this is where the Perek begins. Ubazeh yuvan. Once we learned this idea of Tehi tzaddik, now we understand this whole idea. Because you could think, one learns 100 times, one learns 101 times. They're both beautiful, good Jews. Says you don't understand. It's the difference between night and day. One of them serves Hashem and one of them doesn't serve Hashem. One of them is on autopilot.
That's tough.
And serving Hashem requires avodah. And what is avodah? As defined in Chassidus, it's brought on many times. The word to take leather, take a hide, and to make it into leather. What's the word in Hebrew for that?
Oh.
No, ibud.
Ibud, right? Ibud
That's tannery.
right? Avodah is like ibud dairis, just like you take a rough piece of animal hide, which is pretty much good for nothing. It can't be used. But after a lot of work, and I don't know exactly what the process is, but there's a lot of different.
You gotta stretch it. You
got
got
it.
chemicals there. You got formaldehyde.
Yeah. And once you do a lot of work, then it becomes a supple, beautiful piece of leather. You can make a shoe out of it. You can make a belt out of it, and you can even make it into
Sefer Torah.
Sefer Torah tefillin, right? And that's the same thing. You and me, we are that animal hide. And avodah is taking us, not just that we're doing the right thing, but that we're consumed with and filled with a love for Hashem. Changing ourselves. We become, now will we ever be tzaddikim? Chances are no. In other words, are we ever going to experience the absolute spiritual bliss and ecstasy and love that a tzaddik has? Probably not. But we could change. We could, step by step, we could become more spiritual and more refined and more edel and more loving of Hashem and more disinterested in the pleasures of this world. And that is not a small thing. And this is really the transition that the Rebbe is making over here. The first Yud Beis, Yud Gimel, and half Yud, the first 2.5 prakim that the Rebbe is talking about a Beinoni, the focus is on, there's a battle, Nafshel Kis, Nafshel Bahamas. The Beinoni is the one who wins the battle in terms of that the Machshava Dibur Maisa is proper the way it's supposed to be. And then in the middle of Perek Yud Daled, with the second answer of Tehit Tzaddik, the Rebbe takes a turn and says, yes, you're a Beinoni, so you might think that the only thing is important is Machshava Dibur Maisa. No. Tehit Tzaddik, you have to be an Avodah. You have to be an Avodah. So, someone here said they wanted to be a Lo Yavadeh earlier.
So Halavai, we were Lo Avodah.
Halavai.
100 times.
But that was based on a misunderstanding.
Yeah.
Because if you think that Avodah is 100, Lo Yavadeh is 100 times, and Avodah is 101 times, then you say, I'd love to be a Lo Yavadeh, right? But Lo Yavadeh is not 100 times. That's only an example. It's only an example.
It's not real.
Whatever is your routine, you need more. But it's more than that. Not only that. The greatness of the one who's the Avodah, here's the key understanding. The depth of the Perek. The greatness of the Avodah is not in what he does. It's not that he does the 101st time. That's a symptom of his greatness. It's the Avodah. The Hisboinenus and the Avas Hashem. The symptom, how do we know if a person is in love with Hashem?
It comes out.
When he goes the extra mile, when he does the 101st time.
So how's it different from a chassid who does lifting Meshur Siddin?
It's not. It's the same concept.
The same concept?
It's the same concept, yeah.
So why you don't call him a chassid here? You call him an avodah.
What is a chassid?
An avodah.
What? Yeah. Yeah. Chassidus, especially Chassidus Chabad.
I thought it was a different.
We're going to get there soon in Perek Tzayin. What is a chassid Chabad? Think about that. What is Chabad? Chabad is someone who goes and uses the mind to be murdered. And the same thing in Hiddur Mitzvah. It's the exact same thing. What you're saying, that you mentioned Hiddur Mitzvah, right? With Mashur Sadin, same idea. When the person does the Hiddur Mitzvah, what's the greatness in it?
Not the Hiddur Mitzvah.
It's what brought to the Hiddur Mitzvah. The beauty is what brought it.
What brought his motivation?
Exactly. Is that some people?
How do you measure?
Some people they're in love with Olam Haza. And therefore, even though that they can suffice with a house which is 1,500 square feet and regular furniture, but because they love Olam Haza so much, and we're told you have people who are Shomrei Torah mitzvahs, right? And these are people who learn 100 times. In other words, in the metaphor. But where is their heart? Their heart is in Olam Haza, so therefore they have a house which is 5,000 square feet, and the furniture is from the top quality. You ask the person, do you need it? No, but that's what I love. And then there's another yid is someone who his love is the Eibishter. And therefore, can he suffice with learning 100 times? Yeah. Just like you can suffice with a couch that isn't leather. Of course I can suffice with a couch that isn't leather, but I love a couch. I want it to be the best. I love Torah, so even though I can suffice with 100 times, because this is an important point. In terms of memory retention, is there a real difference in 100 times and 101 times?
Very little.
It's not even
negligible.
Right. It's not utilitarian. It's simply because I love the Eibishter so much, I'm going to do 101st time. So it's not the 101st time. It's what led to the 100. It's very important. Now, the Rebbe says that. Why is it, again, to repeat the words that we just said, the Rebbe says the 101st time is more important than all of them. Why? Mipnei, 3 lines from the bottom, page Chaval. Why? Why is it so valuable? Because Kedei l'sham neis teva regilus, because in order to go beyond what you're normally used to, tzarech la'eres aval Hashem, you need to have love for Hashem. That's why it's valuable. It's not the 101st time. Let's put it in different words. It's kind of, when I was a kid, I remember, so I had a teacher, a wonderful teacher, already in Ilma Emes, and I don't know if it's a good chinuch idea or not good chinuch idea, but we had a Meya Pam V'achas campaign. We're just beginning learning Gemara. We should go home. We should chazer the piece that we learned 101 times. And then he would trust us that if we, you make 4 lines and then a line across it, right? So if we come back and we did it with 101 of them, then we got a prize for it. Got a prize for it. Okay. Again, I'm not a big mechanech. I don't know whether it's a good idea or not a good idea. I don't even know if that's an inyan. In other words, as we explained earlier, there's a reason why they learned 100. I don't know if today that's whatever. Be as it may, but definitely according to this period, it's missing the point. Because the 101st time is not about one place. Okay, 101, perfect, good. It's about something which is much deeper. Now, the Rebbe is saying that we need to serve Hashem beyond what our comfort zone is, and where does that come from? It's not because we need to serve the 101st time is important. It's because the love that brought it is important. Just like in the relationship, it's not the 9 gifts that are important; it's the love that brought it. And now we understand the pasuk. There's a tzaddik and a rasha, and they're worlds apart. And at the same time, also there's a Eved Elokim Ashalei Avadi, and that's not a tzaddik, not a rasha. They're both beinim. They're both people who are wonderful, good people. But at the same time, one is a Eved Elokim, one is a Lei Avadi. So the message to you is not to learn 100 times or 101 times, because those are archaic. They don't apply today. That's my knowledge. I don't know of anyone in the last since the times of the Gemara who came out and said there's an Indian to learn today something 101 times. But the Indian is the Avodah. That we have to have Avodah. We have to have a love for Hashem. And most of us walk around, let's be honest, most of us walk around and what are we focused on? Doing the right thing. Doing the right thing. And then we say Shema. Okay, so we play, token homage to the words. But to us, our main focus in life, how many of us have a focus on loving Hashem? Because to us, the main thing is, Hamaisu Iker, what's the bottom line? I'm doing this mitzvah, I'm not doing this avera.
It's even more than that. It's generally all the mazeh. Mazeh takes a lot of space.
Right, and you know what? You could be, that's exactly the point. You could be someone who does all the mitzvahs and doesn't do averis, but your heart is an Eilam Hazeh. Your heart is not by the Eibishter. You're a Le'avadeh. Now, a person's a Le'avadeh, he's going to go up to, after 120 years, I'm sure he'll get a beautiful place in Gan Eden. So if that's what someone's motivation is in this world, if they're, they're biding their time and trying to earn their Gan Eden, okay, you'll get it. I mean, I'm sure the Gan Eden of an Avodah is greater than the Gan Eden of a Le'avadeh. But I'm sure that someone who learned everything 100 times when he went up to Gan Eden, he got a beautiful Gan Eden. But the Avodah person doesn't care about Gan Eden. He loves Hashem. That's what it's all about. Just like in the relationship, right? What are you going to get out of your relationship if you give that extra? You'll probably get rewarded for it. But are you doing it for your reward? Is that your motivation? And then the Alter Rebbe continues in Perek Tezayim.
Perek says you shouldn't be.
Sorry?
Perek says you shouldn't serve the other Amanas to Mekabel Schas.
Right. Right. So in our life, so if let's say you're used to learning something once, that's your comfort zone, and you learn it twice, then that's your avodah. And let's take it further. If you're used to learning something 0 times, and now you started learning once, that's your avodah. But that's a backward focus. The point here isn't the point. The point is the avodah. You're going to say, okay. So I did, till now I learned an hour. Now I will learn an hour and 20 minutes. It's not what he's saying over here. It's not what he's saying. The avodah is a byproduct of the avodah. The point here is that that's why the pasuk says, it doesn't say someone who learns 100 times or Yosem Regilul say. But what we're striving for is the idea of avodah. Every person on their level has to be an avodah. So to say, I would like to be a avodah, you didn't understand what you were saying before. I'm not blaming you. But once we understand the concept, everyone strives to be an avodah on their level. And when you work on yourself to create a love for Hashem through His beinunus, it's going to manifest itself in that you're going to start doing things that are beyond your comfort zone. But that's what you're striving to serve Hashem with Ava, and the result is the automatic result. And the Rabbi continues Perek Zayin, and this is very important stuff. Let's do the first lines of Perek Zayin on page 42. V'zeh klal gadol b'avodas Hashem lebeinin, and this is the big klal in the avodas Hashem for those of us who struggle with our nefesh habahamis. Ha'ikar, what is the main thing? Limshel v'lishleit ala teva shebechal lasmali, to dominate and to control the teva which is in the left side of the heart. Ayidei eir Hashem hameir lanefesh alikisha b'moyach, through the light of Hashem which shines to the nefesh alikis in the mind. V'lishleit ala lev, and through that to control the heart. And how is that? When a person is misbainin in his mind, b'gdulas ein seif baruch hu, in the greatness of the infinite light of Hashem, and thereby through his bina to give birth to das, v'yiras Hashem b'moichai, to give birth to yiras Hashem, right? And then he continues, and the Ava, next line, 2 lines, v'avas Hashem b'libay, fear of Hashem and love of Hashem. And this, Dr. Rebbe says, the klal gadol. I think this is one of only 2 klal gadol that there is in Tanya. And the second one is also in this period, which we're going to get to in a second. Klal gadol, rule number 1. And this is the essence of Chassidus Chabad. Why are we called Chassidei Chabad? Because the main thing is avodah. And the avodah is the avodah of the heart. The avodah of the heart. And how do you get the heart? And that's through Chabad, through being mizbainen. And this is a klal gadol. It's not enough to do the right thing. We have to get our heart in the right place also. Why is it important? Why are we making such a big deal out of Avos Hashem and Yiras Hashem? It shouldn't be the main thing to do what's right, to do the mitzvahs, to learn Torah. Why is the so important?
Because that brings you to doing what's right, doing Torah.
So there's 2 ways of looking at it. One of them is like you're saying, it's in a very practical way. That if your heart isn't in it, then you're not gonna what?
Then you're not in it.
You're not in it, and eventually you're not going to do Torah mitzvahs also properly, and you're certainly not going to go the extra mile. You're certainly not going to, do the 101st time. That's a practical way. It's important, and when you're emotionally involved with Hashem, that's a very sustainable type of avodah. You're not fighting every single second, and you're not. You're excited. You're enthusiastic. You're passionate. You're in love with Hashem. You fear Hashem. You're in awe of Hashem. So for number 1, it makes for a very sustainable avodah, a more, what's the word I'm looking for, even keeled. Right? But there's another point. Imagine if someone offered you a shidduch. And this shidduch is going to this girl or this boy, depending on talking, whoever it is going to be the most compliant and obedient spouse you've ever had. Whatever you want, 24/7. There's only one caveat. She or he, they're not really going to like you. They're not going to love you much or like you, in fact. Their mind and heart will be elsewhere all the time. But practically speaking, they're there for you 24/7. Any buyers?
It's like a companionship, like your marriage for convenience.
It's a marriage for convenience.
Yeah.
I don't think that's anyone's dream marriage, right?
But that's what you describe.
We'd rather the spouse that cares for us and loves us, and they're not perfect in Machshava Dibur Ma'aseh. Maybe they don't. They're not there for us 24/7, jumping at our back. The main thing is, right, the heart. So if we look at our relationship with Hashem as He is the big king, and we're His pawns, and He just wants us to just do it. Put on tefillin, give tzedakah, eat kosher, Fast on Yom Kippur. Okay, in that case, the heart taka isn't that important. But then go pull out Ashir Hashirim and read this tremendous, passionate love story between Hashem and Klal Yisrael. And you get a little of a different picture. Yes, Hashem is the big, awesome king. And yes, He wants us to learn Torah and do mitzvahs. And He really wants us to do that. And it's very important. But Hashem also wants a relationship with us. And the relationship means the heart. He wants us investing the heart also. Our hearts, our minds, our self. We talk about, we're going to start talking about this more in the upcoming lessons once we can move on. Tanya, Hashem wants a dira b'tachtoinim. He wants to be dwell. He wants to dwell. He wants a presence in the lowest parts. Tell me, is there anything more tachtin than your heart?
Any more what?
Anything more tachtin? Is there anything lower than your heart?
Tachton.
What's lower, your heart or your hand? I don't mean spatially. What's lower?
Your heart or your hand?
Yeah.
In what respect?
In respect of distance from Hashem. That's what the lowliness means. When Hashem says He wants, right? In the sense of, in this, what? Your hand is lower.
Because the heart has
Tell me about the temptations of your heart, the selfishness of your heart, the ego of your heart, all those things. You tell me that your hand is lower? Your hand is a technical instrument, I understand, but it's not distant from Hashem. Hashem wants in your heart, in your mind, in your ego, in the place where you also were previously, or you still have all these other desires and temptations swimming around. That's where He wants to be. That's where He wants to be felt. He wants you to love Him. Yeah, that's what Hashem wants. So there's the easy Yiddishkeit. The easy Yiddishkeit, I'm making it sound easy. We all know it's not easy. Just doing Torah mitzvahs 24/7 is not easy at all. But it's in a relative way, it's
Mechanical.
what? Mechanical. The mechanical Yiddishkeit, yeah. The Rebbe once said, the Frierdiker Rebbe was once complaining to the Rebbe that there was a chassid who came to him and said, Rebbe, tell me what to do, whatever you want me to do. I'll do whatever you want. And the Frierdiker Rebbe said, that's a petchete kind, which means he's a spoiled child. Tell me what to do and I'll do it. No, I'm not telling you what to do. I want you to figure out what to do. I want your heart and mind to be in sync with me, and I want you to know what to do. I don't want you to be mechanical. It's nice. And the Frierdiker Rebbe said, it's like, Yoina said, Sa'uni vatiluni alayam. Just take me, throw me in the sea, do whatever you want with me. There's the mechanical Yiddishkeit. Tell me what to do, I'll do it. Gemara in Sotah says, right? Tell me what my responsibility is, I'll discharge it, I'll do it. Tell me what to do. It's one of the few types of chassidim described in the Gemara there. It's not in a flattering way. Yiddishkeit is not mechanical. Yiddishkeit means that Hashem wants you, He wants your heart. That's avodah. And avodah, how do you get your heart? So that's the major difference between Chassidus Chabad and all the other Chassidism. Where do they diverge? What's the difference between Chassidus Chabad and all the other Chassidism? Baruch Hashem, we're in a room here, we have representative of Chassidus Chabad and every other Chassidus. What's the difference? The difference is that everyone knows that, in other words, Chassidus is about the heart. But how do we get the heart? How do we get the heart all excited and enthusiastic about the Eibishter? So Chassidus, what's called Chassidus Chagas, which is the other Chassidus, and obviously I'm lumping everything together, and some are more, some less, but they're more about external inspiration. You take out a sefer and you learn of art, and you get all fired up from it, and you do get. Anyone knows. You open up Kedushas Levi and Noam Ali Malach. You open up Marv Shemesh, beautiful. You go to your Rebbe and you hear a vart and you sing a song and you get all inspired. But every single time that's a short burst, because it's external. Chassidus Chabad says, no, you're going to sit down for an hour. You're going to learn a mimer, not a little piece, not a vart. You're going to learn a sugya and you're going to contemplate about it. And your whole perspective is going to change, and that's going to develop a more sustainable love. And in other words, everyone agrees the main thing is the heart. The question is only, do you start with the heart? By inspiring the heart, like injection straight to the heart? which is more the Chassidus Chagas style. And obviously there's always there's overlap. In other words, there's some inspiration in Chabad and there's definitely some contemplation about other Chassidim. But we're talking about what's the primary emphasis. Are you going to get an injection to your heart with some Avos Hashem? And then tomorrow, when that wears off, you'll get another injection, right? Which is, you'll go to your Rebbe again, who is a very holy Jew, and he'll tell you a vart, and he'll get you all, you'll watch your Rebbe daven, and you'll be chapping malachim? Or is it something which is, you're going to learn about Hashem in a very, what's the word I'm looking for, sequential, in a very mesudadik way, in a very organized fashion, and you have a developed understanding of the way of Torah and of the higher worlds and the Eibishter and creation, and then you contemplate on that, and you're changing your heart in a more sustainable way, and that's the avodah. And that's the klal gadol. The klal gadol is avodah. Avodah means the heart. And then the Alter Rebbe continues and says, and now I want to tell you another klal gadol in the same perek, another cardinal rule. We have two klal gadols. Again, maybe I'm forgetting, but to my memory, these are the only two big rules in the entire Tanya. Both of them are in Perek Tazayin, which tells us a little about how important Perek Tazayin is. He says like this: when you think about the greatness of Hashem, there can be one of two results. Result number one is that your heart begins palpitating, and you feel tremors of fear and awe and reverence, and your heart is excited, racing with love for Hashem. That's nice, that's beautiful, that's ideal. It doesn't always happen. Especially if you happen to have a neshama which is a lower neshama, whatever that means. There is another kind of emotion, which is a colder emotion. And that, in the words of Kabbalah, he calls it here tvuna, or the feelings that are betalumais moiche v'libe, which means that when you think about something long enough, you know I should be feeling that way, and therefore you do feel that way a little also. Sometimes you go into a wedding and it's a very, very close friend or a family or mishpacha, and your heart is racing with joy. Sometimes you go to a funeral and it's someone who's close and you're devastated. Sometimes you go to a wedding and you're like, I'm not excited, I'm not so happy. Or you go to a funeral and so what do you do when you're in such a case? What do? You need to get yourself into the mood. So you think by the wedding how happy it is, and the chassan and the kala and the binyan adiyad and the wonderful and the parents and the babis and zaydas and or the opposite. When you go to a funeral or when you come into Tisha B'av and Shul and you're not feeling it, so you stop and you think, the tragedy, the sadness, whatever. So sometimes that will lead you to feeling in your heart, but sometimes what's going to happen is you'll be if you think about it enough, okay, so I'm going to go dance. Even though you're not feeling it fully, but you feel it a little. You feel it, it's a colder emotion. Or by the funeral, so you're feeling it a little, a colder emotion also. The same thing when it comes to serving Hashem. We have to think about the greatness of Hashem. Sometimes that will lead to amazing emotions. That's great. But Alter Rebbe says if it doesn't happen, it's fine. The main thing is, even if you have that, you think into your mind the greatness of Hashem, and therefore I should serve Hashem with such intensity, whatever, and that leads you to do Torah mitzvahs. That also, says the Alter Rebbe, is avodah, and it's very possible that for your neshama that's your maximum capacity. And if that's the case, you should know, says the Alter Rebbe, you're fine. That's your avodah. Until now we're talking about the importance of avodah. We have to understand that avodah, yes, it's important to have the heart involved. But it doesn't necessarily mean that there has to be these flaming fires. And the Alter Rebbe then in Perek Yud Zayin, the Alter Rebbe says that now we understand what it says in the pasuk, which is really the pasuk upon which the entire Tanya is based. Ki karei veilecha hadavar miyoid beficha uvavavcha la'asosei. So first of all, the order beficha uvavavcha la'asosei is a funny order. Beficha is speech. Bilvavcha is the heart. Lasoise is action. So if you want to go in order, you'd go either heart, speech, action, or action, speech, heart, right? But what's the speech, heart, action? Says the Alter Rebbe, the reason why the pasuk does this is because, and also it doesn't say beficha uvilvavcha ubemaisa. There's la'asoise. The ubilvavcha la'asoise go together. In your heart, to do. How much is that necessary? How much is it necessary to have the investment of the heart? Enough to get you la'asoise. And that is enough, even if you only have the tvuna, like the lower level we're saying before of the emotions, the colder emotions, it's also fine. And that's what Moshe Rabbeinu was telling the Yidden, Ki karev elecha davar miyoid. It's take practical for you. Why? Because what am I asking of you? The only thing I'm asking you is, beficha, to do Torah with your mouth, ubilvavcha, and in your heart. But how much? La'asoise. And that's something which every Yid can do, there is no excuses. Bilvavcha la'asoise. To have enough love to bring you to a state of la'asoise, of doing it, that's what everyone can do. So here is the rule that Rebbe is laying down. Every single Yid, ki karev elecha, has the ability to be misbainan, to think into the greatness of Hashem, and that is what avodah is, and through that to make a change in the heart, whether to bring about, the full-fledged, palpitating emotions, whether to bring about the bilvavcha la'asoise, but for that, ki karev elecha. And that is the tachlis avodah. The Rebbe does continue, and he says that this is true regarding everyone. Im lo mishu hu rasha be'emes. Someone who's an emes rasha. In other words, not the rasha from Tanya. Someone who's an emes rasha. Emes, a person who's done a lot of avedas. Then about him, so then about such a person we say, the Chazal tell us, harishoim hein b'reshus libam ve'ein libam b'reshusam. Rishoim, they are under the control of the heart. The hearts are not under their control. In other words, even if they're going to think of the greatness of Hashem, they're not going to be able to awaken any love for Hashem. And for them, the only way to start serving Hashem is by doing tshuva first and breaking the hold. And once they do tshuva, even a rasha be'emes also afterwards can start serving Hashem. And again, the definition of avodas Hashem, as explained in these prakim, is hisbaininus, meditating in the greatness of Hashem, and thereby and through that developing avas Hashem and a yiras Hashem, and becoming a changed individual and someone who has a real relationship with Hashem.